Since 1920, when the NFL was founded, players have been receiving head injuries from how the sport is played. Today, with advanced equipment and researching technologies, players continue to receive concussions at a growing rate. Former and current players conclude that per season a player may receive 100 plus hits to the head that could cause concussion-like symptoms. For players with long careers, this could mean over 1,000 concussions, and studies have shown that it only takes 2 or 3 to permanently damage your brain. Davis, July 18, 2012, USA Today. This growing issue is a concern for players not only in the NFL, but also in high school, college, and lower level leagues. Concussion awareness needs to be put on the radar as boys of all ages continue to play the sport and get injured. If the NFL does not begin educating players and coaches about concussions, it is likely that lower level leagues will not branch out on their own to spread awareness. Without awareness and change in the near future, the sport of football may be forever modified in order to keep its players safe. I have seen how concussions affect the people around me, and it is obvious to me as a bystander that something needs to change. In high school, my best friend's brother played football and received multiple concussions while playing for 2 seasons. I watched as he would have horrible migraines and nearly constant headaches after these hits. Educating players of all ages and implementing change, starting in the NFL, could solve cases like these. As you can see, concussions in the NFL are a major problem and have not been minimized due to 3 causes: lack of research, poor equipment, and negligence. The first cause I would like to discuss is that of the lack of research into concussions and how they are caused. Right now, there is no way before the death of a player for researchers to see how a player's brain has been affected by concussions. A number of deceased players have donated their brains for research, however, which has led to the discovery of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE. A recent study conducted by UCLA researchers found that compared to healthy men, NFL players have elevated levels of FDDNP in certain areas of the brain that control learning, memory, behavior, and emotions. FDDNP is a chemical marker that binds to tau proteins formed from brain trauma that can be caused by concussions. In the image, you can see a normal adult male's brain compared to the brains of 2 retired players. FDDNP is the green that you see in the image, and as you can see, the NFL players' brains have a much higher amount than the normal male's brain. January 22, 2013, UCLA Health Sciences. All studies on brain damage in football have recommended further study, however, as no one is really sure what causes FDDNP and concussions. Recently, study has gone into what causes a concussion, and 2 main ideas have arisen from the research. One is linear acceleration, which is caused by strong, mostly centered impacts. The other is rotational acceleration, which is caused by an off-axis impact, causing the brain to rotate within the skull around the center of gravity of the head. Palmero, Inu writing. Discovering these 2 causes was a huge step in the right direction, but researchers still have a long way to go. At this point, there isn't even any evidence of whether these are correct or even related. The second cause I would like to discuss is that of poor equipment, particularly helmets. As researchers have not found a concrete cause of concussions, helmet manufacturers are being put in a very bad situation. Theoretically, they should build a helmet that protects from linear and rotational acceleration. However, researchers are not even sure that these are what cause concussions. So in essence, helmet manufacturers are attempting to construct helmets that protect players against an affliction with a disputed cause. As of now, helmets are still being designed to protect from linear acceleration, as they always have been, and why would companies change this? Palmero, Inu writing. With all the unconfirmed data, no company would take a more expensive and difficult route of protecting players from both linear and rotational acceleration if current helmets continue to sell. As you can see in the images, however, companies are trying new techniques to protect against linear acceleration. So far, none of these approaches have worked very well. It has also recently been determined that impacts are not uniform for every football position, and athletes experience different hits based on the positions they play. Quote, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and linebackers experience the lowest magnitude impacts, but the highest frequency of collisions over a season, more than twice any other position. Running backs receive the greatest magnitude impacts, while quarterbacks sustain the greatest magnitude and most frequent hits to the back of the head." End quote. Palmereau, NU writing. This evidence would seemingly call for different helmets for different positions, but this would also be difficult and expensive for manufacturers. The NFL needs to invest in more research for equipment so that if these changes are found to be necessary, the manufacturers will make them quickly to protect players. The final cause I want to address is the NFL's negligence in reporting and treating concussions. The NFL has claimed that concussions have decreased in recent years. However, during the 2010 to 2011 seasons, the NFL released two different sets of statistics about the number of concussions that occurred, making it impossible to accurately evaluate these claims. The NFL has also set no defining term for concussions, so teams can get away with saying that a player has a head injury instead of a concussion. Fanaroo and Fanaroo-Wada, December 13, 2012, ESPN. By saying the player has a head injury, he will be allowed to return sooner, and the team will not have to report the injury to the NFL. This is where the inconsistencies lie. For example, the Cleveland Browns reported 27 players with concussions from 2009 to 2012, while the Cincinnati Bengals and Miami Dolphins each reported 6. The Bengals reported no concussions in 2012, and the Dolphins reported none in 2009. Fanaroo and Fanaroo-Wada, December 13, 2012, ESPN. It is obvious that more than 27 concussions, which was the largest number reported, occurred in 3 seasons, and there is no possible way that throughout an entire season a team did not have one player with a concussion. It is impossible for the NFL to say that concussions are decreasing when they have not set a standard of how to report these injuries. Not even they know the extent of the problem, if this is all the information they require from teams. Along with inconsistencies in reporting concussions, the NFL has not done enough to treat players who are known to have concussions. The NFL recently implemented a rule called the Madden Rule to protect players by stating that a player may not return to the game if there is a possibility that they have sustained a concussion, but it has not been strictly enforced. According to ESPN, during wildcard weekend this year, Green Bay tackle David Bakhtiari and Saints cornerback Keenan Lewis both returned to their games after leaving the field for concussion tests and not being cleared. After further investigation, NFL doctors, quote, found no fault in how the team medical staffs conducted themselves, end quote, January 10, 2014. Allowing these players to return to the game was a direct violation of the Madden Rule, and yet doctors found no fault in how these situations were dealt with. Players obviously want to play, and football is built up as being the sport where you sacrifice pain for your teammates, but doctors need to enforce rules like the Madden Rule, as concussions are not like other injuries. Davis, July 18, 2012, USA Today. Players also need to realize that keeping themselves safe will help them and their teams in the long run. However, how do we change the mindset of players who see self-diagnosing as a sign of weakness? Overall, the NFL has to improve in how it reports and treats concussions if it wants to keep its players safe. As you can see, lack of research, poor equipment, and negligence are 3 main causes of the NFL's concussion problem. So what can the NFL do to solve these issues? The first step would be to invest in medical research and enforce rules that state that players absolutely cannot return to the game if they have been diagnosed with a potential concussion. There also needs to be a change in the mindset of players that confessing their concussion symptoms is not weak but smart and will help them and their teams in the long run. If players and the NFL could get on the same page about concussions, the problem could be solved in a much shorter amount of time. However, if the NFL does nothing to improve the conditions, the sport may be forever changed as players continue to get bigger and stronger. In the future, if nothing changes, we may lose the top-rated sports league in the country.